through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keeps dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
Yo, big up people, big up this G. We're back in the building. Guys, as per usual, make sure you smash that like, make sure you share and subscribe to the channel. Jurgen Klopp has now left. Jurgen Klopp has now left the football club. We've now got a new man in charge. Guys, make sure you go and watch my thoughts on Klopp video. I apologize for the audio, of course, in that video, but you'll get the gist. Yeah, what I mean? You'll get the gist of what I was actually trying to say. I'm not re-recording that video, by the way, so just make sure you go and watch it. Yeah, I thought it was a really good video in terms of my personal thoughts behind Jurgen Klopp. His time here at Liverpool, but that's now ended. And I said I didn't really want to keep banging on about the past, you know what I mean, because then we never allow the new manager to come in and kind of do his own thing. We never really allow the new manager to be his own man. It's always going to be judged by the previous guy. It's a bit like being in a relationship, right? When your girl's always comparing you to your ex all the time. Oh, we used to do this, and oh, he took me to this place, and you always feel like you're having to compete with two people as opposed to just competing with yourself, trying to make sure that you're doing your best and not worrying that, oh, but my best isn't as good as the previous guy's best. Forget all of that. As long as you do your best, hopefully it allows Liverpool to flourish in the future. So this is just like a little short video where I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts and opinions behind Slot. He's coming, taking over Jurgen Klopp. He's spoken a lot about that, previously. This is kind of like his achievements at Feyenoord. He's won manager of the year. Got to the Europa League conference final back in 22. Won the Eredivisie, the 22-23 season. Won the Dutch Cup for the last month for the first time in 6 years. And he finished with a 20-game unbeaten streak in the Eredivisie since he lost to PSV. So, outside of that, obviously was at previously at AZ Alkmaar as well. Done really well there. To be fair to him, of course, left under kind of cloudy circumstances, we'll say, but we're not going to be too worried about that. But just in terms of my initial kind of thoughts, now you guys who've watched the videos and you see me on other channels and things like that talking about which manager I would want. Of course, Jurgen Klopp leaving as well, so it's big shoes to fill. No matter how I feel about Jurgen Klopp, and Jurgen Klopp is obviously still a fantastic manager regardless of anything. Either way, it was always going to be big shoes to fill, or big boots to fill, should I say. And I just wanted someone maybe a bit different. Not even maybe, I wanted someone that's a bit different to Jurgen Klopp. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, I just think that the style of football and all of that kind of stuff, like it was like emotionally intense with Jurgen Klopp. And obviously I get it as a Liverpool fan. I understand the fan base and how Anfield is and how Liverpool are as a people kind of thing, or as people, should I say. So I get all of that, that kind of side of things. But ultimately, I do also look at these things and think to myself, yeah, maybe we need to break away from that. Just because sometimes when you're so emotionally intense, it doesn't really allow room for really anything else to kind of necessarily grow. And then that's where I feel that, overall, we kind of get maybe a little bit bogged down with the emotional side of the game, as opposed to really looking at it, okay, we're here, let's do this, etc., etc. Now, he's obviously Slot coming in, to his role at Liverpool. Ultimately, he's in a better position than we would say that Jurgen Klopp would have been, of course, in terms of where the club was at, both financially, off the field, commercially. Yeah, that's just off the field stuff. And then obviously on the pitch, you had some really crappy players, right? So of course, the position that Slot's coming in, anybody would be in a better position, kind of thing. So that's already giving you, would I say, somewhat of a leg up, in this kind of situation. Now, not to say that then means I'm expecting you to come in and then boom, just hit the ground running, you win the Premier League in the first season. If you do that though, boy, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like that would be amazing. But I'm more looking at someone like Slot and I'm thinking, I wanted De Zerbi. That was my initial, because I said I love De Zerbi's football. I think it's quite progressive football. I think that's kind of the what people are moving into. Obviously, a lot of people are doing it, but in different ways. But I like his way, of doing it. And obviously, when we're looking at the available managers out there, he's the one I'm looking at and thinking, yeah, you bring that to Liverpool. I think that could really work. And also, you're still keeping a little bit of the ethos that Liverpool's about, because you can't lose the essence. That's one thing that a lot of Manchester United have done, is that they lost their essence, they lost their ethos, their morals, behind the identity of their football. You can get a new manager in, of course, especially our manager coming in, say, after Sir Alex Ferguson, who built those morals, the ethos, the identity. And you can have someone else who comes in and does something a little bit different, but you still need to keep those core. I always think it's that core identity, and they lost that, especially when they started getting in David Moyes. Then you go to Jose Mourinho, the Louis van Gaals, Eric Ten Hag's now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, interim in Ralph Ragnick, Michael Carrick, like too many managers. And Liverpool had that before as well, prior to Klopp. Where we had so many different styles of managers. You got Gerard Houllier, you got Rafa Benitez, Roy Hodgson, Kenny Dalglish, Graham Souness. Like, so many different types of managers are coming in and doing different things. Brendan Rodgers and stuff. So you lose the essence almost. And I actually feel like that Brendan Rodgers kind of really brought that back, if I'm being 100% honest with you, in terms of his style of football, more so in that 13-14 season. But he kind of brought that. I felt like the core identity obviously didn't pan out, but he brought the core identity. So Klopp already had that when he came in. So when he then comes in, it's more about trying to enhance that. And I think with Slot, it's again enhancing that even further, whilst mixing it with your own type of football, and and being able to implement your kind of style, your kind of effect, to the team. So that's why I felt like De Zerbi might have been a good choice. But you know what? He's picked, they picked Slot. It is what it is. We move on, kind of thing. We know that he likes to play in this kind of 4-2-3-1/4-3-3, formation, and that's what he's predominantly been known for at Feyenoord. Do I think it can work at Liverpool? Yeah, I think we've got the players to kind of play, it's basically 4-3-3, to be honest with you anyway. So yeah, I think we've got the players to potentially do that. But of course, with additions. I don't think, if I just looked at the current squad and he said, I'm not signing anybody in the summer, I think it will be problematic heading into the season, especially with a new manager. I think he does need to get in a few additions, a few players here and there. And then I think once he's done that, then he'll be in strong stead. He'll be in strong stead to then be able to move forward, develop whatever players he feels he can develop, and turn into whatever type of player, and then move forward. But he's got quite a lot of the pieces there anyway, to be honest with you. So again, I'm not looking at him and thinking, oh, okay, you're coming in and you've got to do a Pochettino where I'm just going to give you a bag of youngsters and make it work. and we expect you to win something or get Champions League. It's like, ooh, okay. I'm not expecting that. I am expecting top 4 though. And to be honest, I'm actually expecting top 3, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Unless I see something crazy from like Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, Villa kind of thing, where they're like, they improve so much, then okay, again, this is just more my initial thoughts and expectations. Of course, that might change come the end of the summer when I see that we just sold Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Trent as an example, people. So that's where I'm, kind of looking at it at the moment. I'm like, okay, I'm expecting a top 3 kind of finish. I'm not really looking at how far you finish off top. I'm not really looking at that. It's just more because it's your first season. I'm not out here trying to say you need to win the league. I'm not trying to say I need you to win the Champions League. I need to win the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, even the cup competitions. Sometimes, like, you guys already know my thoughts on the Carabao Cup and stuff like that. I'll be honest, they're not really things that I look at, and I don't feel like managers will look at that at the beginning of a season. And I said this before as well. I don't think they're going to look at that and think, yeah, let's attack that competition. Like, top clubs, by the way, not the middle to lower table, more the top clubs. I don't feel like they're going to look at that necessarily to really feel like let's attack it. I think like with those kind of competitions, it's always tricky because obviously because of when they are in the season. And obviously they're always mixed in with, like, if you're in Europe, they're mixed in with those games. So you almost have to try and prioritize one over the other, of course, as you would do, and the league as well. But I do look at those kind of competitions and think, I'm not saying don't win those competitions in your first season. And again, we're just talking like we're just going, I think he signed a 3-year deal. So if we're saying just in his first season, I'm more looking at those competitions and just seeing, maybe that would be the competition where you can try your ideas a bit more. Maybe you can then, of course, some players as well, like Klopp did for the Europa League this year. I'm looking more at that. Obviously, those kind of competitions come more into play, I feel, later on down the line when you're in more like Arsenal's position when Arteta took over, where it's like this is the beginning, because we're literally at the beginning of this kind of journey. Whereas I feel like Liverpool, in terms of player, like, and I hope you guys understand what I'm saying, in terms of the players that we've got, I don't feel like we're at the beginning of this journey. I feel like we've already started this journey. And that was this season that's just gone, where we finished third, right? And we won the Carabao Cup. Obviously, it's a new journey with a new manager. So of course there's going to be teething problems, but we're already into the Klopp's already opened the door to this kind of to this journey, right? Or he's led us down the path of this journey. He's then realized, I can't take you any longer. I can't take you any further along this journey. I can't steer you guys to the end of this journey. You're gonna have to, have someone else take over. That's where I feel that we're at. I don't feel like we're like, okay, we're just starting this journey, blah blah blah. Nah, I think we've already started this journey now. Klopp said, all right, I can't take it any further. This is as far as I go. The typical Harry Potter lines, Game of Thrones kind of lines. This is as far as I go, Lord of the Rings. And then you're going to need someone else to, continue that with, right? And then, of course, see how that kind of pans out. So that's why I'm not so focused on the cup competitions. Like I said, that's where you play your McConnells, your Clarks, and all these kind of people, and maybe allow them to be able to be implemented into the system so that they can also, understand, because it's a new system. Then I'm not going to be so mad. Again, everything's contextual, right? So that's the way I'm kind of just seeing it at this moment in time. But I am looking at the league and the Champions League and seeing how you perform. Doesn't have the greatest record in Europe anyway. Of course, never won a European competition. He got to the final of the Conference League, as I mentioned before. But in terms of just him in general, that's where I am looking at him and thinking, okay, let's see how you perform over a 38-game season. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good form. There's going to be bad form. What are you like in that bad form, kind of thing. That's another thing I always think about. Is we always talk about, everyone's spoken about all the good things that he does, right? And I'm just like, okay, that's fantastic. And these are all plus points, right? But what is he like in adversity? What is he like when the chips are down? What's he like in game when we're 3-0 down or 3-1 down, or something's just, what are they like in these moments? That's what I want to see. And hopefully I'll be able to see, more of that, throughout time. But yeah, go out there and, just do your best in the cup competitions. But I'm not going to stress you over those. I'm really not. Of course, I'm not trying to say, lose to Shrewsbury. Do you know what I mean? Then we're going to be, it's going to be problematic. But, just in terms of, in a general sense, I'm more looking at that Premier League and the Champions League. And that's where I'll be judging him more than anything. And that's more just in the year one. Of course, depending on what happens in the year one, like I said, I believe he signed a 3-year deal. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think that's what I saw. If we're then looking at year 2 and year 3, you're hoping that by year 2, you're still in charge. Liverpool, of course, finishing the Champions League again. And we're just trying to push on now. Now you've had your style implemented, the players who are here that you're going to keep and stuff like that. The ones that you think, okay, I've given you a chance and you can't do it. You now know the club a bit more. You know the city a bit more. You understand the fans a bit more. Everything's now more integrated. Again, like I said, everything's kind of already built here. So to speak, we've already started this journey. We're not starting from when Klopp kind of came in and you're like, I've got to kind of rip everything up. It's not that type of situation that he's coming into. If it was that situation, then of course you're like 3 years. I'd have to judge him at the end of like 3 years, so to speak. But I can only judge it based on what we've got now. And this isn't a rip it up type of situation, in my opinion, anyway, in terms of the playing stuff. Obviously the structure, yes, but then even still the structure's almost the kind of same structure that we've had before. They just kind of kept it moving at one point, but they've all kind of come back anyway. So it's a new structure, of course, in terms of the job roles of certain people, Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, and people like that. But in terms of, it's kind of more or less similar to what we've been, used to, so to speak. So yeah, I think him coming in now, I think he's going to keep quite a lot of the players anyway. I don't see him, changing too much. And again, as I mentioned before, with the style that he likes to play with, I'm what I'm more looking for from him. And again, it's almost like I didn't even really want to speak on him tactically too much, because I was like, there's just a few points. Obviously, from what I'm hearing about the data, he's quite similar to Klopp in his style of play anyway. Of course, for me, that's on, you got pros and cons. That's more on the con side for me, because that's not what I wanted to see, right? I didn't really want to see too much of that. But I'm more, it's like I'm in the middle, but I'm leaning more towards the con side. If I can see a team with a lot more control, if I can see better football, I feel like you've got the players there. And that's why I'm always so against what Klopp was doing in terms of his style of play, because I was like, you've got the players to really maybe even keep your core identity, but you can play better football. You can always play better football. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I think hopefully that's what Slot's going to bring. Again, like I said, it is more about the control that Liverpool have in games, because they've got the players to hurt you in the Trents, the Salahs, the McAllisters, the Zabozalais, and people of that kind of ilk. You've got players who can hurt you. So if you've got players who can hurt you, add some more quality within that. I can't see why that, it doesn't bode well, so to speak. And again, I haven't even once spoken about, we got to win the Premier League or anything. Now, I'm again in that year 2, year 3. I think it's more about, okay, if depending on how far, again, I don't know what he does, but depending on how far you finish in that first season, it's then about, of course, just building in that kind of regards. But of course, that's where you then are looking at him and saying, okay, let's see what you do win this season, and let's see how close you are in these kind of competitions. Because I don't think I'm going to be like a slot out if he doesn't win anything in year 2, as an example. Because again, I'll be more focused really on the football. It's more, again, I'm looking at that Premier League and saying, how close are you to the top teams? Because that will give me a good measure. If I feel that you're so far off of it with the players that you've got, then I will start to question. But if I feel like, no, he's actually kind of close, kind of thing, and I think that he'll be able to get the pieces, then fair enough. I can kind of get with it. I can kind of understand, and I'm not going to be too mad at that, so to speak. But if I do feel that, you're in a position whereby you're just so far off of it, and we can't do this and we can't do that, and et cetera, and bro, we're finishing 30 points off of top, and all of these kind of various different things, and the football's a bit higgy, and he needs another 4 years, and then I'm again with the players that we've got, that's when you just start to question, and you'll start asking questions, so to speak, as to where this is going, kind of thing. But again, that's probably when I'll look at things. But in year 3, in that third seat, if he manages to make it there, that's where I'm then looking at your trophy and I'm saying, okay, cool. You're like in that year 3, if you haven't won anything in 2 seasons, I'm not going to kill you about it. But depending on the performance levels within those tournaments, again, context is always going to need to be applied, right? But when we do get to that year 3, if I am seeing that you're ending it and you don't win anything again, that's when I'm going to start asking a few questions, because then obviously context the time, I don't know what the team's going to look like, but I'm only assuming that the team should have gotten better than what it previously was, because that's usually, in terms of teams trying to progress, that's usually what happens, right? Your team just gets better year on year kind of thing, and we've already got really good players now. So if by that year 3 you still haven't won anything, I'm going to have to question, can he win anything, kind of thing. Maybe he needs year 4 kind of thing. I don't know. You know what I mean? We literally just have to wait and see. But that's the kind of the way that I'm going to see it for the time being, and then of course allow him to kind of do his thing. But in that first season, I'm not even expecting any trophies. I would like trophies. I want people to understand the difference. I would like to win everything. Of course I would. Am I expecting it? No. I do think in terms of him coming in, it's going to be more about, okay, let's see what he's about kind of thing. Let's give him the time to just kind of embed what he needs to do. And then, you can possibly go from there, because you can see even with like a Pochettino, even though it was a new manager, you can kind of understand. I almost understood why they would let him go. But then obviously on the flip side, because they had such a good end to the season, I am a little bit like, but maybe they're just in overall, it was like, nah, this just isn't what we're looking for kind of thing. But that's just kind of Chelsea. But when I speak to Chelsea fans, the ones who are just really analyzing it, I understood why they were happy almost with that, with the fact that, he's gone, because it isn't just always about, because we finished 6th, because you could have finished 6th, but been playing better football. And then understood that, okay, we're just not as good as the 5 teams above us. People can always understand that. Anyone can understand that. I can understand that. If I finish 3rd, 4th, and understand that we actually played really, like when we finished 17-18 season, finished 4th, I understood at that moment in time, that's how good the team was. So I'm not mad that those 3 teams who finish above us, they deserve to be there. Like you can let that go. You're not going to cry about it, so to speak. So I can understand that if that's going to be the situation, say with a Slot. But when you're in a position where it's like you've had even I know you're trying to implement your style of play and stuff like that, but you're taking too long to do it. You're making way too many changes. You're changing too many things around all at the same time. And it's like when you're starting to do that, obviously it creates dysfunction. So of course fans are going to be unhappy, especially when, you know, fans are sitting there saying, why didn't you just do that? Like that was like, you should, like that was always the play. Like that was always the play. Like it was obvious, you know, so to speak. Obviously we're not managers, but fans, you know, we always think that we know more than the guy who's actually in charge, right? But sometimes it's those kind of things that will annoy people more than most. It's not even the fact that you finish in certain positions, because you don't mind that if you know you've done your best and that's just where we finish. When you've not done your best and you've been too higgy with everything, that's what causes problems. So yeah, we'll wait and see. We will wait and see in regards to Slot. Going to be interesting preseason. I saw someone put up a graph in regards to the players going out for preseason. Sorry, the players who are going to be available for preseason and stuff like that. It's not going to be that many. So again, you know, that initial start. We got to take everything to context, and we just got to understand that there's going to be maybe a couple teething problems. Maybe he might hit the ground running. I would love that. That would be sick. To do that, you could do it for the whole bold gang. You know what I'm trying to say? Allow people to let people know that, you know, I mean, we're serious, man. But of course, we'll wait and see, you know, in regards to what happens with that. And of course, during the summer, guys, I'm going to be talking a lot more, you know, about Slot and, you know, the little things that we see, don't see, how he is with the media, with the fans, what's his relationship with the fans, kind of thing. Is he someone who's quite standoffish? What's he like, you know, when he has to answer certain questions, and so many things. And again, Liverpool manager, one of the biggest clubs. These are things that are going to be ramped up even more so than you've ever seen it before. I don't even think he's going to be even, you know, I don't think he would even really understand it until he's actually in that position, you know, kind of thing. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see, man. But guys, that's the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts and expectations on Arne Slot in the comment section, please. And then, of course, you make sure you guys just stay tuned for the more. For some more videos, man. I'm G. I'm out, man.